I'm listening to every album in the book 1000 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die, no matter how long it takes, and I'm making these videos and these Substack posts in order to chronicle the ones that I find the most interesting. You can check the first video in this series to see why. You can subscribe here and on Substack for free, so you can get everything early on Substack, but also the audio visual form of it over here, and do all the YouTube things like subscribe, share the video with friends. All of that stuff helps this video spread like some kind of musical critical pox. Oh, that doesn't sound good. So just 2 weeks into my 1001 albums challenge, which was around late October and early November of 2024, the size, the scope, and the sheer enormity of what I had signed up for began to truly sink in. So for this video, I'd like to highlight the albums that I listened to on days 11 and 14 of the challenge. Albums which demonstrate what I'll call the book's Pendulum of Quality. We'll also get a little bit into my background as a musician in case that sort of thing is of interest to you. Maybe not, but I promise it's relevant. First, let's talk about the pendulum. On some days, you catch the pendulum on an upswing, and you get to experience something truly, truly special. In the first 2 weeks, this happened for me, for example, with Herbie Hancock's 1973 jazz funk masterpiece Headhunters, which was the album I was given on day one. Like, oh, cool. An album I've been listening to since I was, I think, like 12 years old. Let's do it again. Why not? The Fela Kuti record I covered in the previous video. My favorite 20th century David Bowie album, 1977's Low, popped up at one point. Moving Pictures, Rush's 1981 poppy prog rock magnum opus. And a new and especially surprising listen for me, the eerily anthemic 1985 album by Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair. That full 6-minute version of Shout is stupendous. Other days, the pendulum is right in the middle. Supertramp's breakout 1974 LP Crime of the Century, Arcade Fire's 2010 smash indie hit The Suburbs, the self-titled 1997 album by Blur. These are fine records with a lot of positive attributes, but they didn't really connect with me as much as I would have hoped, and I don't think I'd find myself returning to them very often for casual listening. The worst position to find the pendulum in is a downswing. I'm not even sure if pendulums work this way, but, you know, it's the opposite side of it's the point where ambivalence turns into active dislike. As I lightly alluded to in the first video, I was not a huge fan of Layla by Derek and the Dominoes, a double LP featuring nearly 80 minutes of very middling blues rock. It's not something I'm the target audience for. It's got a nice title track, I'll give it that, but I'm simply not interested otherwise. So, days 11 and 14. Kid Rock's infamous 1998 album Devil Without a Cause, and Miles Davis's 1957 collection Birth of the Cool, respectively. These swung my 1001 AG Profiles pendulum as far in each direction as I think it might be possible to push this list. I'd like to focus on the good news first, which is that Birth of the Cool is really cool. It's truly become one of my favorite albums of all time, the more I've sat with it. Side note, although it was released on Capitol in '57, it's actually a compilation of songs Davis recorded with a nonette in 1949 and '50, and I'm literally pushing my glasses up as I record this line. The first time I started really paying attention to these tracks was as an arranging student in 2020. I was in a master's level jazz program, but my background in formal musical training up until then had been mostly on the classical side. I've always played and felt most passionate about jazz, but I mainly learned it on the streets, as you might say, through jam sessions with my friends in bars and performance spaces, basements, bedrooms, garages all over Long Island. My playing was okay, but my pen was lacking. I knew a lot about orchestration and harmony, but my attention to the finer details required to make a piece of music feel complete needed a lot of work. Birth of the Cool, along with other records featuring Davis in a larger ensemble format like Miles Ahead, also from 1957, and Porgy and Bess from 1959, showed me a new way to think about harmonic motion when writing music for larger ensembles. My admiration for Baroque music, particularly Bach, finally collided with my appreciation for bebop, and I saw them both being applied in equal measure on all 12 of the tracks on Birth of the Cool. The band on this record features 6 wind instruments or horns, and it's a lot of fun listening to them combine to create some great typical jazz chords, some surprising harmonic sounds, but every member of the section also feels like an independent voice in the overall framework of the composition in question, in a very Bach-like fashion. This is incidentally one of the few popular jazz albums that features both a tuba and a French horn, and they both contribute to this album's overall mellow ensemble sound. The 6 horns can move as a single unit in the same direction, or they can weave in and out of each other. The counterpoint is magnificent. If you just listen to the opening track, Move, that's a really great example. Point being, even around 75 years after these recordings were created, I'm still blown away by their sophistication. The bulk of the album's arrangements were handled by Jerry Mulligan, who's one of the architects of what we call the cool jazz sound, which this album's name capitalizes on. Davis is featured prominently as a trumpet soloist on just about every cut, but there's plenty of space also for other soloists, and it just so happens to be a total murderer's row of some of bebop's greatest innovators. The lineup includes Mulligan himself on the baritone saxophone, as well as alto saxophonist Lee Konitz. They're the 2 reed instruments, and they counterbalance each other perfectly. There's also J.J. Johnson, who might be the greatest bebop trombonist of all time. He plays on a majority of these tracks, as does pianist John Lewis and drummer Max Roach. Kenny Clark is also on a few of these tracks, also trombonist Kai Winding. Gunther Schuller on French horn, who later went on to be like a very influential theorist and analyst in the space between classical music and jazz that this album plays in. It's an embarrassment of riches in terms of the performance personnel, and of course a lot of them act as arrangers. Also, Gil Evans makes 2 appearances as an arranger here on Moon Dreams and on Boplicity, and these appearances sort of foreshadow Davis and Evans's full-length collaborations on later albums, Miles Ahead, Porgy and Bess, as I mentioned before, and also Sketches of Spain from 1960. So what Birth of the Cool lacks in volume and intensity compared to other large ensemble jazz, it brings instead an intrigue, and it really demands my attention, which is, I think, the thing that I am most drawn to about it. Kid Rock's music demands your attention also, but whether or not he keeps it is another story. Nice segue. Cool. Despite Robert Ritchie's bougie upbringing as the son of auto tycoons on a large farm outside of Detroit, his music under the alias of Kid Rock mainly targets a lower class demographic. Rock's political signaling has also shifted hard to the right over time, especially during the Biden years. That being said, a lot of the right-wing signifiers he's been baking into his work since Don't Tell Me How to Live came out in 2021, are also present on Devil Without a Cause, his breakout album from over 25 years ago. It's brash, crass, trashy, and politically incorrect, and it makes no apologies for any of that. Unfortunately, as with most conservative provocateurs who make a living saying deliberately offensive things for attention, it just comes off like a cry for help. That's true for Don't Tell Me How to Live, and it was just as true for Devil Without a Cause. We're talking about someone who was defending his use of the Confederate cross as recently as 1998, and continued to do so for even longer. Was Michigan even in the Confederacy? It's pretty north, it's pretty up there. Rock's love for Dixie and cowboys and his whole country arc, it just feels like a marketing thing to me. Rock even says the N-word on the closing track of this album, Black Chick White Guy, but by that time I barely had the brain power to even process that he had said it. It barely registered with me. As far as the actual music is concerned, this is a toxic combination of hip-hop, rock, and metal. I'm all for these things coming together in whatever combination, but you gotta come collect with the riffs, and you gotta come collect with the songs. Rage, the Beasties, even Slipknot, Mudvayne, Korn, at one point knew how to put their own stamp on that fusion. But first, let's talk about the rock stuff, the rock and metal aspects of Devil Without a Cause. They never rise above the level of, like, corny pentatonic hard rock and heavy metal schlock. Hit single Bow It Da Ba takes way too long to get going, and when it does, you wish it hadn't. Even Limp Bizkit will surprise you with a heavy-ass riff every once in a while, but you don't really get that with Kid Rock's band. As I said, there's also a few nods to country music that foreshadow his later success in that area, and now part of me has this terrible feeling that if this album wasn't somehow a smash commercial and critical success, we might have been spared of the whole bro country trend, at least for a little while. Kid Rock is also, bar none, one of the worst rappers I've heard on record. His flows are noticeably rudimentary, and apart from basic rhyming on the ends of lines, he's not really doing much of anything in terms of wordplay or punchlines that's really like unique or stand out or even like present at all a lot of the time. Eminem pops up to deliver the only proper rap feature on the album. I mean, unless we count Joe C, rest in peace. Eminem immediately embarrasses Rock as soon as he starts flowing. I mean, the two of them are basically night and day in terms of their gap in their ability to rap. And obviously Eminem in the late 90s and early 2000s, he's going to embarrass most people on the mic, so maybe it's an unfair comparison, but it just really shows like what Rock lacks. I mean, he's got energy, he's got a lot of energy, but I don't feel like it's really directed in any purposeful direction. One of the main reasons I like hip-hop so much is because I like to hear a rapper's point of view, their perspective on life and the world around them. Right? Kid Rock's perspective is about as deep as a puddle.
Devil Without a Cause is an apt title, but not in the way I think Kid Rock wanted it to be. Because if you don't have a cause of some kind, why bother making art to begin with? I'm not talking about a political cause, although Rock certainly has one of those now. When I say cause, I mean reason for existence. There's nothing interesting, unique, or even serviceable about this album. The fact that Kid Rock has nothing substantive to say as a lyricist is not a problem in and of itself, but he makes it a problem when he offers us absolutely nothing of interest to grab onto musically. Going forward, I'm gonna try and not focus too much on the Pendulum's negative swings. There honestly aren't that many albums that I've had this type of visceral response to so far. I've continued under the assumption that, okay, I got Devil Without a Cause out of the way. I don't think it's gonna get worse than that. Hopefully I'm not proven wrong.